Hello there. Today I wanted to take a look at a very well-known brand of champagne, Lanson. So this is Lanson's Le Black Creation, and this is Creation 257. But surely you're thinking this is Lanson Black Label. It's a non-vintage champagne. We all know Lanson Black Label, and I have to say it's a brand I probably haven't looked at for quite a while. And I tried a bottle recently and was actually hugely impressed with it, and that's prompted me to look again at the brand. As the label here proclaims, the brand was actually founded in 1760 and remained a family-owned champagne house until 1980, I believe, when it was sold by the Lanson family to the Gardinier family. Now, from 1980 it went through a series of ownership changes, which unfortunately also included Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy, the large champagne group, buying Lanson, which at that stage was a pretty major brand. But buying the brand and then selling it off, but selling it off minus its vineyards. In 1994, the brand had another restart, as it were. It was sold to a company called Marne et Champagne, large producers of entry-level champagnes, who in fact renamed their group Lanson Group. However, Lanson, the house, was actually sold again in 1996, and it was bought by a group called the Boiselle Chanoine Group, putting in a stable alongside brands such as Boiselle, Chanoine, de Venogue and Alexandre Bonnet, and also in a house that produces quite a lot of buyers' own brand champagnes for supermarkets and the like. And in 2006, the importance of Lanson as a brand was recognised when the group renamed itself Lanson BCC Group. Changes have been afoot at Lanson since 2015, and probably slightly before. 2015 saw a new cellar master take over. Hervé Danton had worked with the previous long-term cellar master, Paul Gandon, for 2 years preceding the change, so it was quite a smooth change. But subsequently, increased investment has allowed quite large changes in the way the house works in producing its champagnes. There have been some changes in the winery, allowing more small batch production. Most of the changes that have gone ahead are around the use of reserve wines, and that's where investment's been required, because the company has increased the amount of wine it puts into its reserves, and thus increased the amount of reserve wine it puts into its wines. In 2013, they'd actually created two what they call perpetual reserves. Now, my belief is that that's sort of a solera of reserve wines, where a solera is built up with a number of vintages and is added to continually as it is drained, so there will always be some element of all the old wines in this blend. Now, they produced two of these perpetual reserves because one was to be aged in a steel and the other in oak, so adding a new dimension, just this slight touch of oak in the reserve wines, to the style of Lanson in itself. So I think the point is, not only are they using more reserve wines, they're using better reserve wines. Another change that has come about is the use of a proportion of wines that have undergone malolactic conversion. And what that does is it perhaps reduces the freshness of the style a little, because you're not getting that tart, green, malic acid, sort of the sharp apple acid that you'd get, and that being replaced with a little more sort of brownness and richness. And this is actually quite a big change for Lanson, because traditionally Lanson had always blocked malolactic conversion to make their wines as fresh as possible. I mean, the name Black Label refers to the fact that there is a predominance of black grapes going into this blend. So the wine has good weight, but that needs to be balanced by good freshness. And as a result of the changes in the way the blends were assembled here at Lanson, that's why they've started producing these creation numbers. So in fact, Creation 257 marks the fact that there have been 257 vintages released at Lanson since 1760. This is a wine made predominantly from the 2017 vintage. But actually, the way that the reserve wines are put together is much better detailed. Individual vintages of reserve wine are noted, plus the use of the Reserve Perpetual. So that's used alongside other reserve wines. It's not a complete change for the way reserve wines are put into this. So the creation number enables the producers to tie more information to this particular wine. So for instance, we know that this wine comes from 95 different villages, that half of those villages are Grand Cru, that the wine comprises 51% Pinot Noir, 36% Chardonnay and 13% of Meunier. When I say the base is the 2017 vintage, that means 55% of the wine came from that vintage. The remaining 45% is all reserve wine. So that's a reasonably high proportion of reserve wines. That's quite an impressive volume there. Of those, we're given more detail. So we're told of these 45% of reserve wines, 19% of those are from individual vintages. So we have wines here from 2008, 2010, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016. We're also told that 21% of the wine comes from the Reserve Perpetual that has been raised in stainless steel tanks. You'd have thought that would leave 5% of the Reserve Perpetual having been raised in oak, but actually the number they give is only 4%. So presumably there are portions of a percentage split between the different types of reserve wine that make that up to 45%. We're told that 24% of the wine, and the aim is that about 25% of it has undergone malolactic conversion. So it's still not the majority of the wine. You still get the tart freshness from malic acid coming through quite strongly. Also, the wine, and remember, this is something we're thinking of as a non-vintage wine, is aged for 4 years on lees. Now, that's about the sort of time that many houses will age their vintage wine for. So that's a significant quality step. It's also a significant step in terms of investment, in terms of investing in quality, in holding that stock for that bit longer. At dégorgement, the wine is given at grams per litre of sugar. It's always worth, with non-vintage champagnes, aging them for at least a year in your cellar if you can. That really can make a big difference to their style and quality. However, this is a wine that is being suggested could age for longer, 5 or 6 years quite happily. The sort of thing that you would tend to do to more premium wine. So I think as long as this investment in quality is maintained at Lanson, I think this could well be a brand to watch for the future. Anyway, let's have a look at it and see what we make of it. Firstly, the colour. The colour is really quite a nice medium to deep yellowish colour, perhaps getting to a straw note. There's a sort of a slight depth to it that's is indicative of the additional reserve wines there. There is a fine bead. It's rising very gently, very slowly, but persistently in the glass as I swirl it. Let's see what we make of the aroma, shall we? There's quite an obvious sort of doughy, bready sort of note from the wine's lees aging. There's a relatively rich note to the fruit as well. There are hints of wild strawberry and red apple, but they are really just hints. It's that slightly fuller style. It's not the sort of sharper green apple style that you might get with a lighter wine. So let's taste it, shall we? On the palate, the wine is fresh and tart, and that gives the impression of real dryness. We know there's 8 grams of sugar in there, but there's a sort of a real lemony crispness that combines with a sort of a sharp, sort of greener acidity than malic acid. But yet, actually, as the wine develops in the mouth, there is also a richness. The wine is perhaps of medium weight. As you'd expect for a champagne, it's 12.5% according to the label. So that's not particularly adding to the weight. What I think it is, it's the predominance of the black grape varieties in there that's giving a richness and a roundness. There's enough Chardonnay in the blend to give that lovely lifted freshness at the beginning of the palate. But the richer notes, the sort of red apple notes, overlaid by yeasty complexity, are lasting really quite well on the palate. The fizz is delicate, it's soft, the bubbles are tiny, and you can feel they're very precise pinpricks on your tongue. There's a really lovely texture there. I think this is a wine with some nice weight, some nice richness, some nice complexity. So I think this wine shows some lovely potential, certainly will buy some of the Creation 257 to put in the cellar to see how it develops over the next few years. And I think that that could be a really interesting one to watch as it becomes richer and gains in complexity. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the tasting. If you have enjoyed it, do please press the like button. That would be great. If you know people who you think might be interested, do please share the video. We'd very much appreciate that. It would also be fantastic if you considered signing up and following us on YouTube. To have your support would mean a lot to us. But most importantly, do please try and make the time to join us for another tasting in the very near future. Thanks again for watching. Bye for now.